Podcasting since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network. kingofpodcasts.com.
Following up on a story I did about tattoos and piercings. A writer writes, imagine if you actually presented hypotheses on the psychological mechanisms responsible for the behavior beyond it being a coping mechanism or a form of expression. Okay, I'll take you up on it.
We're all a little depraved and debaucherous. Here is the king of podcasts.
King of Podcasts here. This is Depraved and Debaucherous, and I'm doing a take two on this. Pissing me off because I had recorded this all completely, 30 minutes, and here we go, take two. I guess that's just the way things are. Website is kingofpodcasts.com. You can find this program and all my other programs. And one of the episodes you'll find of this series, which you can find on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all other platforms, is a story I did back in September of 2022, where I talked about why trauma leads to a ton of tattoos and piercings. So I'm going to bring up a little bit of what I played on there. I'm going to play a couple of clips for you, just to get you caught up in all this, because everything's all fresh in my mind, so I can actually really go through this and easily and run through all this really quickly for all of you. So first of all, September 6, 2022 is when I presented the case about why trauma leads to a ton of tattoos. It got quite a bit of flack. But anyway, I want to play a clip of what I talked about on that episode, again, 3 years ago, roughly 3 years ago. It's something that happened for a long time ago. So now, many people are taking them to express personality or aesthetic, as I said, but there are others where tattooed and pierced individuals are linked to having lower self-esteem and a higher need for uniqueness. Trauma survivors may turn to body modification as a way to overcome past experiences, which is a coping mechanism. You're using tattoos as a coping mechanism. And I mean, I've talked to some girls that I've talked to on dating sites that have definitely admitted to that. That's why they did it. Because they went through some traumatic relationship or something toxic or some kind of abuse when they were younger or not too long ago, where they decided, well, I'm going to just start getting ink on myself because it's just what I feel. And it's not just something that you just conceal, and it's just something that has a meaning to you that maybe you just hold on for yourself. But when you're making it prominent and really showcasing, that's the difference. I got a lot of flack for that episode, but what I did get was a mixed bag of commentary about what I said. So at this time, I really didn't get any comments about this until 8 months ago. Just a Phase writes, it's probably best to look at actual studies before making such claims. So I'm going to present those tonight. Rich Sherman 3673 writes, tattoo lovers unite, tattoo haters just stay quiet, keeps the peace. Rod D1T wrote and said, tattoos equal high body count. I love the fact that these 304s are self-identifying. Of course, if a man is in a relationship with a tattooed, then they at least know what they are getting into. Now, we got more coming in just 2 weeks ago. I got more comments here. And this is where I said, well, I'm going to just run in here. One of the person says, you have valid points. I won't argue against your findings on the Zeke 011. And then I had another person that wrote me telling her own first-person account, little E461, saying that my ex tattooed his entire upper body. He never gave an explanation. He likes it, and he especially likes it when people stop to look at it. Stop him to look at it. Is there something deeper going on? I wish I knew. We're still friends, but he did spend $4,000 on all those tattoos. And then some of the other comments I got was, this was halfway very informative and halfway one-sided. I think it's more cause versus correlation that you need to look into, which I will go into today. And then I had someone else that actually gave their own first-person account of being 36 years old, getting tattoos since they were 14 years old, and becoming heavily tattooed. And bringing up stories about studies in Germany about the correlation between tattoos and childhood trauma. And then I got the most recent one yesterday from the Electric Cheese Productions 22. So just to reiterate, they write, imagine if you actually presented hypotheses on the psychological mechanisms responsible for the behavior beyond it being a quote-unquote coping mechanism or a quote-unquote form of expression, end quote. These are hollow, superficial presentations and tell us virtually nothing more than what we've already had in our heads. You spent 10 minutes communicating the fact that some studies find some correlation between trauma and tattoo acquisition, then repeating some concerns you have. Which, by the way, the episode itself only ran 10 minutes. So he's saying the whole episode I spent on that. I used to do a thing where the episodes were much shorter, but then I realized when I did a 30-minute format, I would do like smaller episodes, and I did a 30-minute show on this night, Tuesday nights as I record. And then I decided to go just with the 30-minute route because it worked, and people really got into it. So fast forward to today. Now we have the story that comes in. So I'm going to go ahead and start running through the research we've already talked about on the program, add some more, and a few things that are trending right now that would add more to what's going on that people should be aware of, and it's becoming much more, commonplace. That prove my point, and I hope it does tonight. Now, I talked about the correlation about how tattoos were said to be a coping mechanism, that there's a correlation between tattoos and trauma, and that the amount of people that went through traumatic events, out of 1,000 plus people in the study that I talked about in 2022, that 46% had gotten a tattoo, and they had suffered from some traumatic event, traumatic act. But again, if you want to go back and look at that story, you can look back at that past episode, and I have the link for it in the description of that study. But I'm going to move forward now. There was a research article about tattoos in the wake of trauma, transforming personal stories of suffering into public stories of coping. So if you want an actual story that talks about this, Deviant Behavior has this story. It's in the publications of Taylor and Francis online. So that's the research article. Laura Crompton is the author, the lead author on this. Published March 14, 2020. Now, in the abstract itself, it says that growing numbers of trauma survivors have chosen to cope with their ongoing invisible wounds through tattooing their bodies. And that includes individuals as well as organized and documented projects held in public spaces. This topic of body modification through tattoos has benefited from an explosion in academic interest, but there's been little attention directed as to examining how tattoo practices may be understood as a means of coping with trauma within a contemporary cultural context. While drawing on psychological and cultural studies perspectives, they explored the meanings attributed to tattoos by trauma survivors, analyzing documented personal accounts of tattooed survivors in different countries. And they illustrated how being tattooed appears to be a personal way of coping with trauma, as well as a cultural practice of meaning making. So the meanings attributed by these trauma survivors included exposing their trauma for recognition, witnessing meaningfulness of the tattoo, connection, control, and transformation. And the meaning-making process appears to be continuous and dynamic, shaped by psychological responses, social interactions, and cultural narratives. So just to clarify what I said about the 2022 study, I want to make sure I read this here, that 40% of participants had at least one tattoo or piercing, and approximately a fourth of those participants reported significant child abuse or neglect. And among those reporting child abuse, 48% had a tattoo or piercing. 35% of people not reporting child abuse had a tattoo or piercing. So it's more than half. In this case, let's go to another case that just recently got published. Combat Trauma and Inc., a study exploring tattoos as psychological resources in soldiers. There was a series of interviews published in Stress and Health. They spoke with 8 Israeli combat soldiers, revealing that their tattoos were closely tied to military experiences and emotional distress. And these tattoos served as coping mechanisms. And the soldiers process and make sense of their time in the military, according to what they said here. Now, these combat soldiers were tattooed either during the military service or shortly after being discharged. And they were often connected to traumatic events that they had experienced, such as participation in extended combat, injuries, or the injury, death, or suicide of fellow soldiers. 2 female participants in these of the 8. Participants ranged between 21 and 29 years old. And again, Israeli combat soldiers. These are not the easiest of people. And this, remember, if you know about Israeli people, they all have to serve at some point in the armed forces as part of their life in Israel. So these are just pulled from the gamut and brought in to be military servants, to be armed forces, soldiers. They didn't specify which ones of the females or males in here, but they said that 4 were single, 4 were married. 6 of the participants had up to 3 tattoos. 1 had 6, 1 had 15. And most of them were related to military service. When they talked to the individual soldiers, one person recalled that when I was discharged, I thought about it a lot. About my commander, about the bullets flying over my head. I see him in blood and everything. And there were 2 themes that they said they have found out of the whole story. First was military events, and the stress soldiers endured served as the background for many of their tattoos. The tattoos acted as mementos of traumatic events that they lived through. The second theme was that tattoos served as a resource for coping with stress. 3 of those participants got tattooed, helping to reduce stress by allowing them to express and relive their emotions. One of them said that mostly some of the tattoos helped me lower my stress level and be calmer. I could actually boil with stress in certain situations. But when I think of the tattoos being a part of what I experience, I'm calmer and less stressed by the situation. And other participants viewed their tattoos as sources of strength and empowerment, giving positive meaning to their hardships. So there's yet another story that comes into this case. Now let's go into something else that's becoming common. The meeting Medusa TikTok trend. And there's a lot behind this story, so let's go into this. So since 2022, there have been TikTok videos that have been coming out, leading users to wonder about the meaning of the phrase meeting Medusa. And being saddened to learn that it's code for incidents of sexual violence. And certain readings of the myth Medusa say that she met herself and Poseidon assaulted her in a sacred shrine, the shrine of the goddess Athena. And Medusa was apparently a very beautiful woman, a young woman, who was serving at the behest of as a virgin priestess at the behest of Athena. But then was cast out by Athena once she was violated by Poseidon. So this trend has been accelerating as of 2024, and survivors started showing off their Medusa tattoos on TikTok. Awareness of the meaning behind the symbol spread, shocking those who didn't know many had suffered this trauma. So it's brought up people that will put up stories and say, I will never forget the day I met Medusa. And then references to meeting Medusa have appeared in comments and videos for years, but awareness didn't spread until much of outside of survivor communities until 2024. Statistics in the National Library of Medicine, last updated in August 2023, they say that 26% of girls, 5% of boys, experience some form of this traumatic assault. It quite often happens more than once. So one particular TikTok video shows a caption that says, "Life is so private. No one knows I have met Medusa before when I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old." And then the earliest of these videos was October 2nd, 2022. User Hello Kitty My BFF told her tale to the metaphor of her first meeting Medusa at age 9 and continued to encounter her through the years as the mythical figure expressed sadness and encouraged her to speak out. Now, some modern readings will claim that Medusa was given the power to turn others into stone was not a punishment, but it was because Athena granted the victim of assault the power to defend herself in the future. So the Medusa dynamic is a feminist interpretation. It embodies who a young, modern, feminist woman is today. The independent woman that doesn't need a man, that wants a man only to go ahead and pay for her discretionary income and support her because of her pretty privilege. Like a Medusa. And I'll tell you, I never even thought about that correlation with Medusa because I never even thought about the origin of Medusa, because the only recollection I've ever had of Medusa at all was the movie Clash of the Titans, which was based on Greek mythology. And we only saw Medusa when she was able to turn men into stone and had the snakes and all the things going around. And that was the only way to go and see it. But never knew that originally Medusa was a young, beautiful woman, a virgin priestess, which is the amazing, that is the feminist interpretation. And that this dynamic comes into play. There's a tattooed artist in July 2024 that went viral with a demonstration of his reaction, learning the meaning behind Medusa. And he wrote in caption, quote, POV, after doing hundreds of Medusa tattoos, someone finally tells you what they actually mean. And his face falls into grief and he says, I'm so sorry. Parade Magazine. Maybe you've heard of that publication. It's a little insert they used to have in the newspapers back in the day on Sundays when people still got it. When newspapers were still a thing. Parade Magazine spoke with therapist Anita Astley. Like Rick Astley, Never Gonna Give You Up. Yeah, that one. On the symbolism behind Medusa tattoos for survivors. She says, quote, I believe the Medusa tattoo is the perfect visual depiction of a survivor's journey from pain to resilience, strength, empowerment, and self-preservation, a protective symbol, as she has the ability to destroy those who are a threat to her being. This tattoo says 1,000 words and is a permanent stamp of survivorship, not hiding, but displaying it for all the world to see. And with that said, I want to go ahead and play for you now a TikTok video that has come out recently that makes the point. And this is from TikTok user Hannah Gilmore 13.
So I'm on my way to get another session done on a Medusa tattoo on my side. And like many other people, Medusa to me symbolizes surviving SA. You know, when it happened when I was 21, I spent 3 months where I literally couldn't leave my house. I was too afraid to even walk the dog outside. I was just paralyzed by fear. And if the version of me that was freshly post SA that literally couldn't leave the house could see me today, I think they would be completely shocked. One, that we're still here, and two, that I'm able to do so much by myself now. And it's not to say that I don't still live with fear. You know, if I see someone that looks like those people, like, not a good time. I still have nightmares. Things can still be pretty rough, but the fact that I'm able to go places by myself now, I can go to my job no problems now, I can travel by myself. Like, I never thought, like, really truly never thought that I would be at a point where I could do those things again. So yeah, anyways, I'm getting this tattoo to kind of symbolize the fact that I survived, and I'm doing great. Okay, bye.
I mean, it's a shame that she has to go through that already, and that she did. And I mean, it is an important first step that she's able to go ahead and find her way to go and, you know, find out how she can get back into her life again after suffering something so traumatic. But it's one of those areas where, depending on how she wanted to go ahead and handle getting herself treatment, if she decided to get treatment for it, or if not, she wanted to go move on with her life and not bring it up at all, that's okay. I understand that part. But it's one of those things where, I mean, there's only so much, I guess, that parents can do, or we can all do, to prevent children or just, you know, loved ones from having something like this happen to them. 21 years old, it's unfortunate. And of course, we talk about on this program all the different toxic relationships that are out there, the narcissism, the controlling, the gaslighting, all this stuff. We have no clue as to what happened to her. But the fact of the matter is that the Medusa tattoo symbolizes for her, it's a coping mechanism. And because of her getting this and going through the process of getting that Medusa tattoo, it helps her to live her life. I'm not disputing that. I'm not discouraging it at all. But I hope that young girl is able to go ahead and find her way to not lose who she was before that. Because that's the part she's talking about. She's saying that she's a different person than before. And for some people, that's absolutely fine. They want to go ahead and go that route. They don't want to go ahead and go through the route of being who they were before because it was a naivete or just the innocence and the youth that they were, you know, that something could happen to them anyway. That was something that could have been inevitable and not preventable. In my case, I just want to make it where I keep looking at tattoos as a sign of coping. But I would hope that people will not just choose to go and get tattoos just to go ahead and go through coping. Totally in favor for those that want to get tattoos for expression, for symbolism, for meaning of everything else. But when it has to be done for trauma, there's something that's concerning to me. And that's why I brought up this issue 3 years ago on the previous episode. And I've done it a couple of other times since then. And I'm only bringing it back because people did comment about it. I got comments about the tattoo stuff, and I'm glad, because I remember when I first put that episode out, it didn't get much traction at all. Somewhere, somehow, it got traction. People caught on to it, found the episode, 14 months later, but hey, thank you for finding the show, and they listened to it. And it got a decent amount of views. More than I get for some of my episodes, but I'm happy to say that. Look, I mean, my YouTube channel's been up there for 8 years, and that's like one of the top 10 videos I have on the channel. I didn't expect it to go that high, but I thought, well, people want to go ahead and hear about this, and I would love to hear other people's stories about this and understand if my correlations, the research, the evidence I'm trying to present now, the studies that I've been talking about here tonight hold water. So I hope that some of you, if you're catching us on the YouTube channel, and if you're not, find the YouTube channel at King of Podcasts, find the episode, and comment there. I'd love to go and go back and do a follow-up episode on this and get some feedback on this. I would love to go ahead and find out more about that and see what you think about it yourselves. The other thing I want to bring up too, which is important, is in my evidence, trying to go and show the correlation. The evidence is not just my own first-person account of thousands of women I've talked to from the dating sites, right? I talked about that. And there was something that was there. I was able to go ahead and correlate with the women that I was talking to, the ones that didn't have any tattoos and the ones that did, and the stories they had that they told me. And of course, people were going to tell me, oh, they gave you some just kind of smoke or whatever. They were just telling you something else. No, maybe there were some people that did, but I don't think all of them did. I think I got told more of the truth than I did than not. Because again, I would talk to a number of these girls about my own experiences of, which I never went after tattoos, wasn't my coping mechanism. But one of the things was that, several years ago, before I started this series, whatever I can talk, that I would not speak about here, but like privately I've said that, we have traumatic events that we've gone through and experienced. But it's one of those things where, how do you go ahead and handle it? And the tattoos as a coping mechanism is one way to do that. But there's also the way that, if therapy works for you, which I've done it twice, and I think it's been effective. But one of the things I think more than anything is that I wanted to be able to reflect and understand my behavior as a result of things that happened and why things did not work out for me like it did, which is why I'm chronically single today. I needed to understand that. So I've taken my time to go and learn about that. And I think I've taken time to go and reflect. But now I'm in a day and age where, the world has changed since I actually got myself here to this point. Because now we're at a point where women have definitely gone a different route. Social media has definitely amplified the idea of being independent, but it's like not even more so than that. Now there's just a lot of delusional, blindsided kind of thinking now that women are starting to get because they're being indoctrinated by some of the women that are on here thinking, oh, well, we don't need a man. We don't need relationships. We don't need anything at all. Because there's like the most worst possible scenario of women and their thoughts about men. And also the fact that the younger men that are being raised now, they're not masculine. They're not ready to go and be with a woman and know how to handle and appreciate a woman for who they are and what they provide. But you ask the question, what is it that a woman provides in a relationship and what a man provides in a relationship? Two different things. But now we're at the point where relationships are different now. I mean, and it's even more obvious that people are not trying to date each other. Not as much. And one of the things for me, I'll be honest with you, is that the more women I see out there with tattoos, the more I don't have an interest. Tattoos for me are an absolute deal breaker. 150%. Because the thing is, I try to keep myself a clean slate. And of course, I've got my wounds and my marks that can be apparent as to why, I'm not perfect at all either. But for me to look for somebody that I could start fresh with, that will give me an actual open chance to go ahead and be in a relationship with me. That's not going to go and go through being materialistic or make it all about sex and money, or sex, love, and money. And it's like there's no love behind any relationship. I don't want that either. Like, I'm trying to get my mind reset and start fresh, if I can do that. And for me to do that, I have to find somebody younger than me, not someone that's older, somebody younger. So I look at that, but then I see what's going on with these younger people and what they're going through, men and women. And there's a reason why my show's gotten a good response among younger women and younger adults alike, because I'm trying to go and spread a message that, hey, if you disagree, fine, but let's get the dialogue going. Let's get the conversation going about it anyway. Because there's something about what I'm saying here. That's why I thought it was important to talk about this. One of the stories I want to bring up here is a story that's being talked about in Canada, in the Greater Toronto area of Canada, that they are doing more with tattoo removal. And in the story, they also talk about the story of Pete Davidson, the SNL cast member that, was there for so much time. He does quite a bit now in movies. He does a stand-up. He has commercials he's in, so he's doing just fine. But he's gone through the process, and they'll say in the story, of removing over 200 tattoos off his body over all these years he's been out there at 31 years old, and now decided, I'm going to get rid of all of them. Maybe keep a couple. He says it in the interview here, but taking $200,000 and over 5 years since 2020 to start removing all of them completely. Here's a story from CTV News talking about this very story right here.
At Tony Tonez Tattoo Studio in Mississauga, not only does he create vibrant tattoos for his customers, he also uses lasers to remove them. Tonez says there are many reasons why someone may want to have a tattoo removed.
You're now able to remove a pre-existing or old tattoo that you may either regret, or you may have some life changes or career changes as well.
A laser is used to break up the ink beneath the skin, and the price and amount of time to remove a tattoo will depend on its size, depth, and the colors used.
Feels great. I feel like some of my mistakes are starting to get removed now.
Some of your tattoos are going away.
Yeah, I've been burning them off.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're almost gone.
Is it painful?
It's horrible.
Comedian Pete Davidson used to have over 200 tattoos, but by using laser tattoo removal, he's gotten rid of almost every one.
Are you going to keep any?
Maybe like 2 or 3, but I'm trying to clean slate it.
Removery has 5 tattoo removal locations in the GTA. The company says while about 20% of its customers remove a tattoo so they can get another one, others are looking to make a fresh start.
Often you get a name of an ex and the relationship doesn't work out, something misspelled. You can have a tattoo you got when you're 18 and you're 35 or 40, just no longer resembles who you are.
While the laser can be painful, there are numbing creams that can help. You usually need to wait about 4 to 6 weeks between treatments, so removing a tattoo can take as long as a year, requiring 6 to 12 visits.
It's a lot. But people are willing now to, instead of going through the trouble of going to a tattoo artist, and this was something I was thinking about as well. How many tattoo artists have had to become therapists for some of these clients of theirs? When they're in there, obviously they're spending hours sitting there working the needle, and it's almost like you're at a dentist's office. Yeah, you just got to start to gab. One of the things I made mention of too before is that where I live in Palm Beach County, there's the Wellington Mall, the mall at Wellington Green, and they have a big tattoo parlor sitting there that, as prime real estate, it's near an entrance right next to the department store, and they got a huge space. It's like 20 by 30 foot space to have several booths, a big showcase section of all their piercing jewelry, and all the books they have of different tattoos they can offer to people that want to buy. Listen, they make good business in there. Among all the stores that are in that mall, if I had to name the top 3 most traveled to stores besides the food court, you would have to say the Apple Store, Pandora, and this tattoo parlor. That's all of it. They're all consumed in that. Okay. I see a lot of parents that will take their kids in there that are probably 16, 17, 18 years old to go get their first tattoo, and it's accepting. But think about the fact that, okay, sure, there's tattoo regret. We see a lot of those stories like that. Now tattoo removal for the tattoo artists, oh, think about that. They can get all this extra money on tattoo removal and then have these same clients that came in for one tattoo, and then they would come back and get another one and another one. Now they're going to come back in to get one of them off, another one off, and another one off. Or have to go ahead and go through the process of getting some of them taken off. I mean, is that enough evidence, enough to show you that maybe I'm a little bit right about all this? I hope so, because I'm trying. I think I have caught on to something here. So I hope there's enough evidence here to prove my point. And for all of you that are out there that wanted to find out if I could come up with this kind of information and say, okay, here's what I think is actually happening. Well, I hope I did. I really do. And I'm not going to go any quirky without any kind of clothes tonight. I'm just going to say that, hey, it's okay if you have tattoos. If you got them for whatever kind of symbolism or freedom of expression that you have, that's fine. We all have our little vices, all our things that we want to do. But I also want to make sure that people that get tattoos, they want to get them for what they want. And hopefully it's not as a coping mechanism or as a way to go ahead and conceal some traumatic event that hopefully they don't have to go through. Meantime, we all like to be a little depraved and debaucherous.